getting ready to sew the hem on the pocket, and I always want to check my threading on a scrap just a little bit, about an inch or so, just to check, make sure I've threaded correctly. Needle up, press your foot up, pull off to the left, don't forget to cut your threads. And now we're ready to go. Now I am going to use red thread so you can see what I'm doing, but and I'm really hoping that I can sew this really accurately, because red is going to show up. Every little mistake I make is going to show up. Now, let me zoom in here just a little bit, right about there. And if you'll notice, what I have done is I have lined up the silver toe with this folded edge. And by doing that, if I'm using stitch number 1, I should be about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the hem. I'm also maybe about 1/2 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch in from the end. I never want to start right on the very end, because the machine tends to like suck the fabric down into the hole, and then you get a big mess. So we're going to start there, and I'm going to back this out a little bit so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. The other thing that can help, I'm going to drop my needle down, make sure I'm in the right spot, and I am. The other thing that you can do to help prevent a thread blob is to just grab a hold of your threads. Now, you can either grab them with your hand completely, or if you just put your finger on behind there to hold them down so that the thread doesn't get sucked up into the space where the needle goes up and down, that would be good, and then you don't get a big thread blob on your back, on the back. And I'm going to do a couple of stitches forward, and then I'm going to back stitch all the way to the end. And I'm probably going to sew a little faster than you should, unless you have sewn quite a bit before. But you need to choose your pace that's going to work best for you. And if you notice, I'm keeping my hands on the fabric so it doesn't wiggle around. I'm also not sewing over any of my pins. And I'm probably sewing this a little bit slower than I would some of the other things that I will sew, and that's simply because I don't want to tear it out, and every little wiggle in this red thread is going to show up on the outside of my pocket. But again, I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Right, so always stop and take your pins out. Don't sew over them. It's bad for the machine, it's bad for the needle, it's bad for your project. And I'm just going to keep my finger right here to hold this together until it gets underneath the presser foot. Stitch almost to the end, then back stitch about 3 or 4 stitches, stitch off the end, needle up, presser foot up, pull off to the left, and cut your threads. And I always go back with a pair of thread snips, not the big silver scissors, just the little snips, because all we're doing is cutting thread at this point. Now, let's see how well Miss Jones did. Not too bad for red thread on white fabric. I didn't fall off the edge anywhere, and it's pretty close to the edge. So that's what I was looking for. Once you have this part done, then you have to do a little more folding and pressing before you can actually put the pocket on your bag. That's what we're up to next.